Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. Hope you're all doing great and hope you're all staying safe in these troublesome markets. In this video, at least, we're going to do a full update on them. All right. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum specifically, but even more important about the fundamentals influencing the crypto market as a whole right now. All right, because right now what we're seeing is very much fundamentals driven moves. You can also see altcoins right now are very correlated. And there's quite a lot we need to talk about. All right, I'm calling this something like an emergency update, and the title is something like "Will Crypto Crash?" I don't necessarily expect a crash. I mean, especially going into the weekend, that's not what I expect. But I do think that what has happened over the last 24 hours is pretty important to talk about, and it could also be the start of a bigger move, both to the upside and to the downside. But that very much depends on how the fundamentals develop. And that is what we'll talk about in this video. At least I'll try to, I will tell you everything that has happened and what you need to know. All right, so let's get right into it. The audio is still a little bit bad. That will be better next week. But hopefully it doesn't matter too much. It's not great, but you should, I should at least be intelligible. You should be able to follow me. All right, so I wanted to start off a little bit with yesterday, right? So yesterday with the PCE price index data, which was a little bit higher than expected. So that was bearish, right? Because we want that inflation rate data to be lower. And then we also had some pretty major news from the SEC, right? So some good news coming from the SEC in the United States, and we barely got a reaction from that in the markets, which is a bad sign, right? I mean, if you get good news and the market doesn't react, that's bad. It's similar as to when the market is going down, the market is bad, and we get bad news and the market doesn't drop down further. That's good, right? So it goes both ways, but there we already knew that wasn't good, and then we also got that PCE price index data. And then we also got some new fear in the markets because of new tariffs, all right? And that's why we dropped down. And that's why you see a pretty major drop right here in equities. That's why you can see a pretty major Coinbase Bitcoin discount. And that's what's going on right now. The fear in the general financial market right now is relatively high. Volatility index is higher, as you can see right here. Gold has surged slightly within the range. And the S&P 500 has dropped down. Although I must say the S&P 500 right here has also bounced relatively nicely. So that is very much something that's driven by the fundamentals. And that's why I think it's also pretty crucial to stay updated on the fundamentals. Now, first of all, if we talk about those rate cuts, right, because the inflation rate data yesterday, etc., that matters because of the potential rate cuts that we're going to get in 2025. Today, we got some new economic data, and that has supported, again, the market's now expecting 2 rate cuts in 2025. All right, so that's fine. All right, that's slightly bullish, right? Because the more rate cuts we can get, the better. So that's great. But then today we got a lot of data again about tariffs, about just in general, the Federal Reserve speaking about that, Amazon shares dipping down. The White House in general speaking on the tariffs a little bit more. So that's driving fear. That's why we're seeing bearish pressure right now. Now, I would recommend you to keep your eyes on that. I would recommend you to stay updated on this whole tariff situation. As it stands right now, if you want my personal opinion, I think it's a little bit overblown. I mean, we had some new tariffs and we had maybe a slight change in the tariff policy from the United States, but ultimately, I don't think that fully warrants a move like we've seen so far. And if you talk, for example, about the earnings data that came out over the last 2 weeks already about some major companies in the United States, that has all been great, right? And all the other economic data for the United States has been good as well. So therefore, at this point of time, I think this is a little bit of an overreaction, but it doesn't hurt to be cautious, and it doesn't hurt to know what's going on, and we could certainly still drop down lower. So let's talk about Bitcoin, all right? When we're talking about Bitcoin right now, it's actually holding up relatively well, but it's kind of stuck in the middle, all right? And I can show you better right here, where you can see we found support and a major support level right here at 114 and $114.5 thousand, right? That's the first support level. We also spoke about that yesterday. But what that means is that, first of all, we're holding the support relatively well right now, all right? So that's good news, all right? We're holding the 200 EMA. We've had some good spikes down. We've had some high volume buying candles. while the open interest is decreasing, right? So those are some early bottoming signs. But then on the other side, we have broken below balance, right? And the balance right now is sitting right here at 116.8. We need to reclaim that, all right? Well, a little bit lower, 116.6. We need to reclaim that, all right? I don't expect a crash, but if we fail to reclaim 116.6 within the next week, right? Because most likely that's going to happen over the course of early next week. If we're unable to reclaim that, which I would almost say at this point of time, you should assume that we're not going to reclaim that. Then we're going to drop down lower, right? And then we could fill all the way into this next imbalance right here at 112,000. So as long as we haven't reclaimed that level, let me quickly adjust my laptop right here. As long as we haven't reclaimed that level, that's a great adjustment. I would assume that we're going to drop down lower. And if we are able to reclaim 116.6, then we're fine. And we're most likely going to get some more recovery. But that will depend a lot on the development of these fundamentals. All right, so be aware of that. Keep your eyes on that. Now, when we're talking about altcoins are at a very crucial level right here. We basically need to reclaim that level at $280 billion. I will try to put out a video on that as soon as I can. And then when we're talking about Ethereum and XRP, like I said at the start of the video as well, all of these coins are just incredibly correlated to Bitcoin, all right? So they will move exactly as Bitcoin is moving. XRP right now is at major support. I do expect that to hold, all right? The main support for XRP is 2.75 and to 2.85. I expect that to hold. The main support for Ethereum is right here, probably more towards 3,400, 3,500. I expect that to hold short term as well, all right? And like I said, even though I think you should assume that Bitcoin is going to drop down lower. If you want my personal opinion, like I said during the video as well, I think the current fear in the markets is a little bit overblown and that it's a bit more likely that we will reclaim the balance higher. But I'll keep you updated on that. It's better to be prepared for the worst. And that's it for now. I'll be back with a new video tomorrow. For now, have a great evening, everybody. Take care and bye.